Hello, good morning. Today we will discuss about the chapter 2 of the Orange Book, which is the history of a social work profession. So first, we will discuss about the prehistoric period, about the mutual protection and economic survival. Filipinos live in barangays, small squattered communities, often ruled by a datu usually located along mouths of rivers and coastal plains. So in this prehistoric, so mostly of the Filipino live in the barangay, and they are also governed with the different leaders such as datus. Ayan. Social welfare work in those times centered on mutual protection and economic survival. So in that case, the social welfare were really centered on the mutual protection or the safety of the individuals and the economic survival such are barter, ayun po, nakikipag-exchange ng mga pangalakal, ayan po. So, the Spanish period, religious motive to do good to others for the salvation of the souls for many years was the underlying philosophy behind all social welfare activities in the country. As we all know that the vision of the Spanish period is about the Catholicism or the Roman Catholic itself. So mostly they do believe that the salvation of the soul in giving for the almsgiving or even in the right term they can give a different material aids or different that very tangible on that period. Another, the hospitals. Spanish missionaries also administer hospitals and orphanages. First hospital was founded by Don Miguel Lopez de Legazpi and Cebu in 1565. It was transferred to Manila in 1571 and called the Hospitalito de Santa Maria in 1578 under the supervision of the Franciscans. It was renamed Stonebridge General Hospital when the Americans arrived. San Lazaro Hospital, 1578, and San Juan de Dios Hospital, 1956, are reported to have originated from these hospitals. Originated po ang San Lazaro Hospital sa sa hospital na which is Don Miguel Lopez de Legazpi in Cebu, 1565. Other hospitals San Gabriel 1587, Hospital Real 1612, Nueva Caceres in Naga that was 1945, 1645, and the Hospital for Convalescents in Bagumbayan in 1742. San Lazaro Hospital stood out and was known to have been built to house Filipino beggars. It became hospital for the leper in 1631. Another, in the history also in the Spanish period, they have what we call the asylums and orphanages. Among these institutions were the following: La Real Casa Deseridoria 1594, Venerable Third Order of Sampaloc that was 1611, Archicofradia Di Nostro Padre Jesus Nazareno de Recoletos that was 1655. And also in the prehistoric of the Spaniards, that was Spaniards period in social work profession or in the development of social work, they also recognize the schools. The first school established was the Parochial School of Cebu in 1565, funded by the Augustinians friars. Other schools for boys, the Colegio de San Ignacio 1589. In the American period, so we already discussed about the Spanish, so we will proceed to American period. Americans introduced a new education system, new health methods, and religious freedom in 1902. So as we all know that in Spanish, so no religion except Roman Catholic or other that which is very rampant in that Spanish period that they only believe in one religion. Following an epidemic of bubonic cholera and smallpox, Insular Board was created to coordinate and supervise private institutions engaged in welfare work. So another, in 1908, the Philippine General Hospital was established, followed by University Hospital and the Mary Johnson Hospital. On February 5, 1915, Public Welfare Board was created in the passage of Legislative Act number 2510, essentially to coordinate the welfare activities of various existing organizations. So the first DSWD name is Public Welfare Board. That was February 5, 1915. Because of the Legislative Act number 2510. In 1917, the Associated Charities of Manila was founded by a group of civic spirit Americans and Filipinos. Having in mind the concept of community chest, so the first social work or the first casework na gumamit is the Associated Charities of Manila. As it is now called, the initial ideas was to centralize the receipt and the distribution of donations to the different charities organization, which later expanded to include the provision of material relief and employment to the deserving. Between 1919 and 1921, the Associated Charities was fused with the American Red Cross, but the arrangement caused administrative problem and had to be given up. Another, in 1905, the Philippines chapter of the American Red Cross was established to take charge of disaster relief in the country and administer funds from the United States. In 1907, the Lagota de Leche was established to furnish child-caring institutions with fresh cow's milk. So no need to discuss because it's the history. So nandun ang nakalagay na doon na in that certain year, there was the development of the Department of Social Welfare and Development. In 1910, the Philippine Anti-Tuberculosis Society was organized following the first meeting of the Far Eastern Association of Tropical Medicine in Manila. In 1913, the Asociación de Damas Filipinas was organized by spirit women to help destitute mothers and their children. In 1921, the Office of the Public Welfare Commission was created under the supervision of the Department of Interior, absorbing the function of the Public Welfare Board. This new office extensified education campaigns, particularly along maternal and child health, engaged in studies to find out the cause of high infant mortality, established puericulture centers and maternity houses, supervise private charitable organizations, and conduct conferences and institutions. In 1922, the Office of the Public Welfare Commission, so ang mangyayari is, first, number one, the first evolution of DSWD was Public Welfare Board. Another, the number two name of the DSWD is the Public Welfare Commission. The Public Welfare Commissions prepared solicitation forms which required the public to demand of any person appealing for donation to charities to protect the public and organizations from unscrupulous persons or collecting funds. It was, however, not legally sanctioned until 1933. Also known as today the Anti-Mendicant Act, yung bawal pong humingi or even in solicitation form. In 1924, the Associated Charities had become an independent agency under the supervision of public welfare commissions. In the same year, the Philippines Legislative Act number 3203 was passed, relating to the care and custody of neglected and delinquent children and providing provision officers for them. The administration of social welfare in the Philippines was marked by significant developments when Frank Murphy became Governor General in 1933. Scholarship grants for professional training in social work in the United States were made available. The, the legislator appropriated fund for the operations of government child and maternal health center. Another development on that year, social health centers, institutions with combined health and social services were established in selected communities where health and social economic conditions were highly unsatisfactory. Governor Murphy created the first housing committee which undertook a study of slums in Manila, resulting in the experimental house project. He also encouraged the establishment of private colleges and technical schools. He had the National Economic Protectionism Association or the NEPA organized to promote home industries. He created the National Research Council, the Unemployment Committee, which in turn recommended the creation of National Emergency Relief Board to coordinate all private and government efforts to reduce unemployment and relieve stress caused by unavoidable unemployment. Later, this board extended its services to include the relied to typhoon victims. So, yung sinabi ko kanina, yung last video ko na, yung last record ko na this part is under with the temporary social welfare or what we call the residual. He also supported the women's suffrage campaign, signing a law enacted by the Philippine legislator enfranchising women in 1933. The economic depression in the 1930s created serious economic problems. The Associated Charities was unable to cope with the number of applicants for relief and other social services despite appropriations made by the Office of the Public Welfare. The organization received a boost when Frank Murphy approved a large appropriation to the Associated Charities, designating it as the insular relief agency to provide material assistance to the needy, elementary education and handicraft training to those who would otherwise be out of school. So they have their different trainings for those who are not in go to school, and training in social work. These things were done with the help of Josefa Lara Martinez, who had obtained a diploma in social work from the New York School of Social Work in 1921. So, Ma'am Josefa Lara Martinez is the first social work student who graduated and become a social worker in New York School of Social Work. The Murphy administration's social welfare program marked the first time the government assumed full responsibility for the field of distress due to any costs. Yun, that was the American period of the development of social work. So let's proceed. The Commonwealth period. In the field of the health and welfare programs were expanded and improved, and new services were organized such as rural charity clinics, a quarantine service, and a home for mental defective children, as well as the aged and the infirm in the welfareville. So the institution will cater or to have a services which is a multi services or multi facilitated about the mental defective children as well as the age is the welfareville. Under with the administration of President Manuel L. Quezon, working for social justice prevailed upon the National Assembly to pass the anti-usury laws. The 8-hour labor law, laws fixing minimum wage, laws related to ensure pensions and women and child labor. He also initiated housing projects, making it possible for easy installment plans. He created relief boards and other bodies to undertake relief activities during period of natural calamities, economic crisis, and unemployment. In 1940, the Office of the Commission of Health and Public Welfare was abolished also and replaced by Department of Health and Public Welfare. So that's the new name of the DSWD in the year 1941. An executive order established under the Bureau of Public Welfare and Public Assistance Services, which took over activities that used to be performed by the associated charities. So that's it. That's the Commonwealth period. Let's proceed with the Japanese occupation. Social welfare activities during the period consisted mainly of giving medical care and treatment, as well as food and clothing to the wounded soldiers, prisoners, and civilians. So in this year, the Bureau of Public Welfare, after being closed when the war broke out, was recognized by the Executive Commission to attend to a general welfare of residents and to give food and comfort to released prisoners. In 1943, when food shortage became acute in Manila, the Bureau had to cease operation. Relief work during the occupation was undertaken, primarily by the voluntary organization such as Philippines Red Cross, the Young Women Christians Association, or the first group work in the Philippines, which is the YMCA and the YWCA, and the National Federation of Women's League. Several hospitals such as Philippines General Hospital, the St. Luke Hospital, and Mary Johnston Hospital, and the North General Hospital continued to provide medical treatment, food, and the shelter. So that was in the year of Japanese occupation that they also cater the treatment because of the gera na kinakaharap sa Pilipinas. After the liberation, relief work continued to play an important role. The post-war years. The Bureau of Public Welfare reopened in 1946, but lack of funds greatly limited its operations. On October 4, 1947, another name of the DSWD exists. That was 1947. The Bureau became the Social Welfare Commission and was placed under the office of the President for a more centralized and better integrated social welfare program, which signified formal recognition of social welfare as the responsibility by the state. There are three categories of services of Social Welfare Commission. First, child welfare work including probation and parole services and institutional cares of various groups. Second, public assistance in the form of relief and casework services to indigent war victim and the physical handicapped and infirm. And last, the third, coordination and supervision of all public activities. Another, the War Relief Office was placed under the control of the Social Welfare Commission. In August 1948, our president, which is President Quirino, created the President's Action Committee on Social Amelioration. That is another name of the DSWD, which is PACSA, the development of the name of the DSWD, which is PACSA, PACSA, which was charged with the duty of giving relief assistance to the hungry and homeless, the sick to victims of dissident, the depredations and violation. The United Nations International Children Emergency Fund, or what we call the most common nowadays, is the UNICEF, created by Nations General Assembly in 1946 to further maternal and child health in economic underdeveloped countries become activities in the Philippines after 1948. They cater the different welfare of the children. Another, the Social Welfare Administration. On January 3, 1951, the Social Welfare Commission and the President Action of Social Amelioration or the PAKSA were fused into an agency called the another name of the development of DSWD is Social Welfare Administration. With the establishment of Social Welfare Administration, the responsibility for relief was placed under the new agency's Division of Public Assistance. This office had two programs. Number one, first program, assistance, general assistance to the dependent minors and aged and handicapped of special assistance to client with need and problems of a temporary nature like the unemployment. So this is the starting of a DSWD. They cater the multi clientele or multi-sectoral agency. Another, in rendering with the service, rendered in the form of rehabilitation services for employable disabled and physical and mental handicap, as well as the occupation maladjusted. Child Welfare Division, another important arm of the SWA or the Social Welfare Administration, services included casework. This is the starting of the casework, but the founder of the casework is the Associated Charity of Manila. And guidance services for children who remain at home. Supervision for all child caring institutions in the Philippines or in our country. And other services. The Division of Rural Welfare of Social Administration was created by the Administrative Order Number 4 on September 5, 1951. So take note guys, take note class, all of these different Executive Order, Republic Act, Ordinance, Presidential Decree, you need to familiarize, especially when you go on with your other major subject. To deal with mounting social problems in the rural areas, self-help become the underlying philosophy of the rural community development projects facilitated or stimulated by the SWA or the Social Welfare Administration Rural Welfare Division. As we all know in our dictionary in social work also, the self-help of the community or the community development itself can be determined in order to solve the problem of that certain community. Republic Act number 4373, also known as an act to regulate the practice of social work and the operation of social work agency in the Philippines. An important development in the mid-60s or 1965, generally considered as a formal recognition of social work as profession or profession. The 70s, under with President Marcos declared martial law and set up a crisis government of September 21, 1972. And also the UN or the United Nations called on member nations to focus on the developmental efforts aimed at improving and quality of the life of the majority of the population suffering from poverty and its accompanying problems. In September 8, 1976, the Department of Social Welfare became the Department of Social Services and Development, or what we call the SDSSD, or the Social Welfare, or the Department of Social Services and Development, the DSSD. Shifting emphasis from institution-based social welfare to community-oriented program and services. So they have a large catering the client not only in the institution-based but also to the community-oriented programs and services. Programs and services during the 70s. Letter A, the SEA or the Self-Employment Assistance. B, practical skills development and job placement, the different what we call the vocational. C, daycare centers, what we call today in social work profession, the ECCD. Supplemental feeding, emergency assistance, family planning information and motivation, special services for orphaned, abandoned, neglected, disabled, and other type of of special needs. Services were delivered through baranganic approach. When we say baranganic approach, all of the different materials or services or program should be rendered in the barangay in order to have a community development. June 2, 1978, the PD 1397 changes the department. The DSWD was renamed as Ministry of Social Services and Development, the MSSD. Council of Welfare Agency of the Philippines and Community Chests of Greater Manila were organized in that time. The Council of Welfare Agency was established to letter A, study and define social welfare problems and human needs. B, to develop a coordinate plan on action to meet these needs. C, to help improve and standard of social services. And lastly, to serve as the Nation Committee for the International Conference of Social Welfare. In the 80s, the significant achievement of the Ministry of Social Services and Development during that time is the launching of the case management system, the case study and case management itself, which involves the use of MSSD or the Ministry of Social Services and Development internal and external resources. I already explained the internal and external resources. Employing the total family approach or the holistic approach of the client in order to cater that certain problem to be resolved. With set of the social welfare indicators, the SWI, the latter monitors the level of well-being of MSSD's service user, that is their progress from survival to subsistence and finally self-sufficiency. Another, primary health can related activities were integrated into MSSD services on the barangay level in support of Ministry on Health program. Create greater cooperations and coordination among non-governmental organization or what we call the private institution and response of MSSD's technique assistance, consultation, planning and monitored workshop were these the NGOs or the non-governmental organizations such as private. D. Increased participations of local government in social welfare activities. Correct. So the local government should have an involvement about the community development. Coordination with NGOs was intensified as a result of partnership in 1938 license accredited of the NGOs. So nowadays, say for example, if that certain private institution which cater the children or the abandoned or the older person should be accredited first under the umbrella of the DSWD. Family planning motivations was integrated into the MSSD skills employment related programs, population and sex education and premarital counseling were provided for thousands of youth because we have our Youth in Development Act, our Youth in Developmental Act. Another, through a strong tie-up with the NGOs, local government unit, and civic-minded individuals, the 10,000 daycare centers, neighborhood feeding centers, and food for growth were established mainly for the disadvantaged children between 0 to 6 years old. So may mga specified catered services of the different NGOs. Priority attention was given to the development of disadvantaged youth through the Integrated Human Resources Development Program. January 30, 1987, President Aquino recognized the MSSD through EO 123 and renamed it to Department of Social Welfare and Development. So this is the time that the DSWD evolution had go with the DSWD, called DSWD. Under with the EO 123 provided the creation of the Bureau of Women's Welfare. So mostly the 90s or early 2008, DSWD gave a priority to low-income municipalities or the LIM and other socially depressed barangays, or the DSWD was greatly involved in disaster management during and after eruption of Mount Pinatubo. The RA 7160, also known as the Local Government Code, was enacted. So one of these days, you need to familiarize and memorize the different Republic Acts of the social work, which is related, different Republic Act related to our course, which is social work. Non-governmental organization, or the NGO's definition: private, non-profit, voluntary organization that are committed to the task of socio-economic development and established primarily for services. That was NEDA. Classified according to their level of operation. Primary NGOs, also called people's organization and self-help groups. The secondary intermediate NGOs, agency composed to different profession providing services to the beneficiaries. Example of that is the Catholic Charities and the Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement. Tertiary NGOs, the network of NGOs established for mutual assistance or for special purposes. Example, the National Council of the Social Development Foundation. A generic or all-encompassing term of not-for-profit group, the civic organizations such as Rotary Club here in Jensen, community group, the different name of the group of the community, people's organizations, social development agencies, foundations, and charities institution. In February 1999, the country's NGOs network launched the Philippines Council for Non-Governmental Organization Certification, or the PCNC. The RA 4373, the Social Work Law of 1965, provides that no social work agency shall operate and be accredited unless it shall have first registered in the Social Welfare Administration, or the DSWD. Other social welfare policies. So this act, this different act, you need to familiarize and memorize. Under with the child, the code define child as youth and their rights, and entitled include services that should be provided for their wholesome development. The PD 603 of the 1975. Another law of the child, the RA 6972, September 14, 1990, the Barangay Level Total Development and Protection of Children's Act, an act establishing a daycare center in every barangay. So because of this act, the ECCD, or the early child development, early child caring development, will exist, or the ECCD, just like here in Jensen, the ECCD, or what we call the daycare center. Under with RA 7658 in November 9, 1999, an act prohibiting the employment of children below 15 years of age in public and private undertakings. Because the government maybe assess or evaluate that mostly of the different children who are employed under the age of 15 pababa. So that Republic Act 7658 belongs to the prohibiting of employment of the child of that certain ages. The RA 8043, June 2, 1995, entered Country Adoption Act of 1995, an act establishing the rule of govern inter-country adoption of Filipino children. RA 8044, also known as the Youth in National Building Act or Nation Building Act, The act creating the National Youth Commission established a national comprehensive program on the youth development. That's why mostly nowadays the government had allotted also a funds or at that certain amount of that certain money of the government belongs to the youth or youth development. The EO 340 executive order directly national government agencies and government owned and controlled corporations to provide daycare services for the employees' children under 5 years of age. And so on and so forth. We have also the different republic in women, just read it, and there's a explanation. The older person also, the person with disability, the family, the health, the labor employment, and some governmental agents organizations such as this is the most important also the OFW or the Overseas Worker Welfare Administration, an agency attached in Department of Labor and Employment, the National Housing Authority also in providing that certain, and also the Public Attorney's Office is the most important because of under with the Department of Justice, the Philippines Business for Social Progress also, the SOS Children Village, the Women Are Crisis Centered, the Center for Prevention and Treatment of Child Sexual Abuse, established to help children and their families who are a victim of sexual abuse. It offers protective services, preventions and treatment services, training, and the other services. We have also the Cribs Philippines Incorporated. Serves as the receiving home for abandoned, neglected, surrender infants, and abused female minors. So cater about the different minors who are under with the different circumstances. The Norfield Foundation Incorporated, service abandoned, neglected for the children, women, so they cater also the family and the needed disadvantaged family. The Tribe Development Foundation in the Philippines address the need of tribal communities in different parts of the countries. The development of social work profession in the Philippines, the Associated Charities of Manila that was 1917 which is the funded of the casework. The Philippines Association of Social Workers or the PASWI. It is the national organization for professional social worker in the country such as medical social worker, we as an academic social worker, I as an academic social worker, industrial social worker, forensic social worker, clinical social worker, and so on and so forth are belong to the PASWI. The objective of the PASWI is to promote and maintain a professional standard of social work practice, strengthen the competence of members through the provision of the opportunity for their continuing professional growth and development, work for better understanding as acceptance and recognition of social work as a profession, initiate and work for social legislation in social welfare and development through effective action. Expand professional activities also of the organization of local chapters and development and linkages with internal organization devoted to human services. So that is a PASWI. All of the social worker, regardless if you're a medical social worker or so on and so forth. Only the PASWI accredited organization which we can be give a different trainings and seminars to the different registered social worker. Another agency, the School of Social Work Association of the Philippines, also known as the National Association for Social Work Education Incorporated, that was NASWE. So as what stated and discussing last Saturday, last Sunday, that Passway and Nasway is have connected or interrelated. But for the Nasway, only the academic social worker belong to that certain organization. Like as me as a academic social worker, we can be also a member of the Passway because all of the social worker. But that certain Passway who are not under with the academic, they cannot apply or they cannot register in the NASWay organization. So I guess that's all for today for our discussion. And I think all of my discussion will be reading about the PowerPoint, and there is no such explanation about deeping explanation about that certain evolution because it was already written on our PowerPoint. And guys, thank you very much for your participation, and prepare for your long quiz oral recitation. One by one po ako papasok kayo sa Google Meet natin. At as what stated, i-announce ko po and i-post ko to our GC. And have a blessed day and goodbye. Thank you.